Welcome back to Stribling's New York. We don't have our usual classical guitar music for our segue because we have a special guest, Joseph Prisco. Is that correct, Joe?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, well, I'm just going to give a station identification here before we get further into this, but Joe is joining us on the phone from California. We're here tonight, Saturday night, but normally we are on the air at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sundays, and we will be back at that time next week in case you want to tune back in. You're listening to Stribling's New York on WORAM Radio 710 on your digital dial and iHeart Media Company. Joseph Prisco has written a book called The Alzhammer, and it says, keep your friends close, and I forgot the other thing. So tell me about the book.
Well, what I get asked a lot, and thanks for having me on the show, by the way, Rob.
Gladly.
I get asked a lot. So is this a novel about Alzheimer's that happens to afflict a mobster, or is this a novel about a mobster who happens to have dementia? And the answer to that is yes. I think it's both. And it goes to the next question: is this a tragic story? Is this a comic story? And the answer to that is yes, because when you're dealing with dementia and dealing with people you love or don't love, for that matter, you're in this sort of Alice in Wonderland kind of world, and there's so much room for wonder and strangeness and suffering. And my guy, the mobster Mikey, who's losing it and losing control of his mind as well as crew. He finds himself in a spot where his parents are dying of Alzheimer's, and he says he's going to whack himself. He's had it. He's not going to go right off into the sunset, diapered and drooling. He's too powerful for that and too proud. But meanwhile, somebody tries to kill him. Well, that's different. That's not the same thing. And that's when the engine of the plot begins.
Well, it's interesting that you've written this book because just a couple of weeks ago we had Dr. Evelyn Granieri from Columbia University Hospital on, and she's the head of the geriatrics department, and we were touching on some of these same things, not mob-related or anything, but just her big point was we prepare for weddings, we prepare for graduations, the birth of a child, but the one thing we know that's coming is death, but people don't want to plan or consider or think about it, and certainly not at all with humor like you've done, which I think is great.
Well, and that was a fascinating piece, and what she underscored was that this is a universal experience. There's nobody listening right now who isn't touched by dementia in the family or won't be touched by dementia in the family or somebody else's family, somebody they care about. So it's a universal experience. She said, you hit 85, 50-50, you're going to, and I don't know anybody who isn't terrified about the specter of encroaching dementia, which is, and I think this is the drama that, it's becoming a universal preoccupation for good reason. And the research is all inconclusive. We're still searching for answers. We're probably still searching for the right questions. So I remember when I was dealing with my father, who had Alzheimer's, and also my mother, I kept wondering, what is, when he, finally he really couldn't recognize me or couldn't understand, but he was understanding something. And when you look at the electronic magnetic resonance imaging of a brain that's afflicted by Alzheimer's, you can see there are huge gaps. Things don't connect anymore, but they're still there. It is still somebody you love or fear or care about, but they're still, they don't make the connections that you expect them to make, but that still doesn't make them not a person who you care about and need to take care of.
So how have you engaged all of this into a novel?
Well, I think, to be honest, I don't think I realized this consciously until afterwards, after the novel is finished. But this is something that I've been, dealing with my father. We grew up in Brooklyn, Greenpoint, and this was in the 60s when my father was a hustler, confidential informant, bookmaker, compulsive gambler. And I remember we're walking down a road in East Islip, of all places, where my grandparents had a farm. Now, what city kid doesn't love a farm? You know, you got donkeys and pigs and rabbits and watermelon, tomatoes. Anyway, so we're walking down a road, and he runs off into the woods, the old man. And I look down the road, and I see surrounding my parents' house are all these police cars. And he takes off. Where does he end up? California, which is, I still consider myself 50 years later a tourist in California. I still feel like I never really got out of Brooklyn. And that was true for him too. The curious thing that happened about a year ago is I stumbled upon, doing some Google search, I stumbled upon these trials, the New York State Appellate Division trials, in full bloom. There you are. I see these trial transcripts of my father testifying in police corruption cases. I knew nothing about this. I knew nothing about his career when I was a kid. I just found out about this as in my advancing years myself. But you could see that, this was pre-Serpico. This was even before.
This is before the Knapp Commission.
Before the Knapp and IAB. This was the Police Confidential Investigation Unit. And they extradited him back to New York. I knew nothing about this, what was going on. I was a kid in California, hating being in California. Where's the snow? Where's the bagel? Where's the egg creams? And all my friends, I was shanghaied. And so this kind of radical disjunction is sort of consistent. I remember dealing with, I would ask my father questions all the time because I was that kind of kid. And all he would say to me is, "What are you writing, a book?" And which is, that's pure Greenpoint, Brooklyn. I turned out, I wrote a few books. Yeah.
You reminded me of a line from in On the Waterfront when Lee J. Cobb plays the mobster Johnny Fredley.
Yeah,
and he grabs somebody, goes, "You come from Greenpoint, got back to Greenpoint."
Or is that Thomas Wolfe story? Only the dead know Brooklyn. Yeah, because then I wrote a memoir a few years ago called Subway to California, which is about this kind of transition, brutal transition. Come to California. They even have the Dodgers. The Dodgers dead to me after they left Brooklyn. That was the end of it.
I have relatives that never watched another baseball game after the Dodgers left Brooklyn and after the Giants left the Bronx, or left New York, I should say.
Yeah.
The Polo
for me it was, the Dodgers were. I loved Duke Snider, but I had to write him off. He was a Los Angeles Dodger. Then I adopted the San Francisco Giants. So now they're my team. So the book has a subtitle, as you mentioned. Keep your friends close, and I forget the other thing. I have a friend in the New York judiciary who, good friend. And he and I can have whole conversations using nothing but dialogue from The Godfather. Offer you can't refuse. Take the gun. Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.
Take the cannolis. That man's name was Mo Green, and someone put a bullet in his eye. Thank you so much for joining us. This is really fun, and we'll have you back again.
That would be great. It was great talking to you.
All righty. Good talking with you.
Care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.